Good afternoon, bienvenue. My French accent is much better than my knowledge of words. I am Rick Allen. I'm the CEO for Viewlift, which is an end-to-end streaming and monetization platform. Our clients are worldwide in media, in sports at the team and league level, and a variety of other content users across all OTT devices and in all venues. We're delighted to be a principal sponsor for this year's conference. It's great to be in a conference and be able to get out of a work-from-home environment, I think, for all of us. And what I'd like to do in kicking off the business part of this afternoon is really offer some observations on trends that will impact all of us in this ecosystem operating at the intersection of sports, of technology, of popular culture. Sports streaming has been a hot topic and a principal viewing opportunity for sports fans for many years. At Viewlift, we've focused on streaming now for 14 years, which makes us kind of an OG in the space. But that space is growing explosively and will continue. Certainly sports itself coming out of the pandemic, whether attending live events in venues like this stadium or watching at home, has come roaring back as the pandemic has eased. The next few years will offer even more disruption and opportunity. There was a study that was released yesterday that indicated that the OTT world will grow by $7 trillion over the next decade. That's a compounded annual growth rate of 12.6%, which is pretty extraordinary in any field. So let's look around the corner at the factors that are likely to have the greatest market impact and on what we might expect in terms of outcomes. So the first trend is the end of the dominance of distribution by broadcast and cable. There are 5 principal factors at work that I think will end with the end of that dominance. The first is that quite a number of traditional media companies are actually exiting the space. They're curtailing both their coverage and also the investment required to support big license deals. Second, newer companies out of the technology world, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and others, are stepping up for rights. Last week, we learned that the F1 rights are being contested between Amazon and Netflix, as well as traditional players like ESPN and NBC. And just yesterday, we learned that Major League Soccer in the United States has gone entirely to streaming for the next 10 years in a deal with Apple. This represents the first major American pro sports league to go exclusively in streaming, again with Apple. That's a deal which will reverberate through the space. Third, traditional RSNs, which are a US fixture and less so here in Europe, are not, in my view, likely to survive in at least their traditional configuration. They don't have a corollary here on the continent, but changes in the world of cable and satellite distributors have made regional sports networks far less important to the packages that the traditional distributors have offered. And because of that, you have tremendous tension between checks, which at the team level in the US are usually the second largest that they receive, and the changing dynamic of the distribution intermediaries in the cable and satellite world. And so You're seeing many regional sports networks who have larger media parents exiting the space entirely. Some of them, Sinclair being the largest in the US, seems perpetually to be on the edge either of growth or ruin, depending on how you look at it. Fourth, that's led teams to step into the gap. You're seeing more and more teams going direct to consumer because they want to mine their local markets deeply and intensively. It's important for them to understand their fan base. We were talking upstairs about the circumstance in Boston where the regional sports network, which is actually owned by the baseball team and the hockey team, they are now offering a package to folks on a non-authenticated basis, meaning they're stepping around what had been the requirement that you have a cable subscription or a satellite subscription to get access to that service. They're now the first team in America to go directly to consumers. And we know from talking to our clients and others that many more teams are queued up behind that. And finally, in this area, leagues' direct-to-consumer properties are growing really explosively. The recent launch of FIFA Plus is extremely material here, and their collection of content, 40,000 live games per season, is a pretty staggering entry into that race. So that's the first trend. The second trend, the financing deals which are sweeping across leagues and geographies are going to accelerate this. Financial investors have been part of the landscape for sports for many years, and it's a little bit of a checkered record. Usually, financial investors, private equity firms, for example, come in as owners. It's a straight acquisition. We had the biggest ever done recently, Clear Lake Capital's backed purchase of Chelsea. And the record, as I said, has not been consistent. If you look at what happened with the PE purchase of Burnley in the UK and compare it to the turnaround of AC Milan, you'll see the indicia of failure as well as success, but even the AC Milan turnaround was one that had many, many dips along the way. So the new structures, which we're seeing increasing across the sports landscape, have private equity firms and other money sources stop short of acquisition. For example, La Liga in Spain sold a percentage of its media revenue for 50 years to CVC without giving up operating control. There's similar deals now being worked on by Barca with Goldman Sachs, by La Liga Mexico with Apollo, an American PE firm. Generally, when new financing deals come in, because they're being underwritten by the projection of rapidly growing revenue, that's put pressure on the leagues or the teams, if they're the entity being invested in, pressure on those players to go after even bigger traditional licensing deals to meet that revenue growth. But we believe that in this round of private equity investment, you're going to see the money also being used by leagues to increase their owned and operated digital presence. They're doing that for a number of reasons. They want to make sure that all of their games are available somewhere. As you know, traditional licensees often only take a percentage of the calendar. They want to make sure that every geography is covered so that even if they don't have traditional licensees in a market, they want to offer their games within that market, and they can do it direct to consumer. Third, it allows a league or a club to experiment in business models and types of monetization, whether it's subscription services, ad-supported services, fast channels, pay-per-view, et cetera. Direct-to-consumer allows you to try those models. And finally, direct-to-consumer has had a principal impact because it allows a league to control the brand presentation in a way they can't through an intermediary, and to improve their 360-degree view of their fan base. Fan data is the key element in how valuation is being analyzed in these financing and acquisition deals. And because it is so key to league and team value, it becomes key to the investors as well. And if you want definitive proof on the power of data, you don't have to look any further than probably the most successful league in the world, certainly the biggest in the US, the NFL, which is now spinning up its own direct-to-consumer service despite being able to command broadcast and other licensing deals, traditional deals, at almost any level they wish. Third, in terms of trends, technology is at the centerpiece of all of this. If you look at the ad side, as cookies go away, which they are doing, contextual ad targeting is going to become more important to deliver an ad-supported model. And you'll see that in the drive to preserve and enhance ad revenues, companies that are offering the ability to do contextual targeting, video contextual targeting, which until recently wasn't even possible, are going to come to the fore. Companies like Iris TV out of the US, they're going to make real gains over the next 2 years as cookies fade away. And the new revenue sources that were being discussed in many of the conversations upstairs, whether it's VR and AR, whether it's NFTs, gaming and gambling, all of that technology provides the nexus to open up those new revenue streams. And that favors DTC services. In a linear deal, the broadcasting partner normally stands between the league or team and the sports book. Content owners want to have those rights directly. They don't want to have to get to those partners through an intermediary. And so to maximize the revenue streams coming from those new services, it's essential for leagues or teams, whoever the content owner is, to have a very deep knowledge about their fans and to have a channel to activate those fans, both of which favor direct-to-consumer services over the top. Fourth and finally, fans are going to continue to demand innovation. So we expect the following. There have been a lot of questions about when there are too many subscription services being offered for consumers. And ever since the second one came up, it's been posed that we're over capacity, too many subscription services. But every single study, year after year, has indicated that at the household level, there are more and more subscriptions every year. We think that will continue. But what fans are demanding are simplicity, value, and especially personalization. Content owners start out with the premise that they'd like to spread around their distribution rights. They want the broadest possible footprint. They want some insurance against difficulties developing with any one distributor. They like to be able to kind of carpaccio slice their rights. But fans are getting irritated, having trouble finding where to watch. I think that was a major impetus for what Major League Soccer did yesterday. And I think that because of that need at the fan level, you'll see more bundling of subscriptions across multiple sports. You'll see easier ways to find out where you can watch your favorite team, and more products and pricing choices. Our client, Buzzer, for example, has a pay-per-view model that tells you when your favorite team is in a close contest in the waning minutes, and on a microtransaction, you can tune in and watch how the game ends up. So where does that leave us within this ecosystem? Disruption is definitely going to accelerate. Content owners are going to want multiple distribution partners, not just one. They also need to find the right technology and operating partners to help them achieve their over-the-top vision. And the focus on super serving and understanding and super serving fans will become the driving force. For every digital action, content owners should ask, how can we get more and better data about our fans? How can we personalize content and functionality as a way of incenting viewers to give you more information? You want to be seen as the curator, like a Spotify or a Netflix, not just a content depository like a Blockbuster or, frankly, a traditional network. Keep in mind that a truly sticky service for fans starts by being a place to watch games. But to win, you have to go way beyond it to provide information and data to create a destination, really, that amplifies fans' passions and connects them with community. And you can also use those super fans to be a testing ground for new products and services. So we find ourselves in the early days of what really is a gold rush in sports streaming. We expect this afternoon to provide more nuggets along the way to help us all make more sense out of the distribution. I hope you enjoy the afternoon. I thank you, and I look forward to meeting as many of you in the networking sessions as we can. Thanks again.